Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Jasiri Network Live podcast. My name is Nancy Masila. I'm the founder of Jasiri Network, a Pan African diaspora community of professionals, entrepreneurs, and investors. Today, I'm joined by Jermaine. Hi, Jermaine.
Hey,
Jermaine Craig, founder of Kwanda, a philanthropic fund charity built by African diaspora to solve long term challenges across Africa through local innovation. And I think what's also very special about the Kwanda is how their funding decisions are made by the community, and people kind of vote as to the projects that they need to take on. And with their financial transparency, or rather financial transactions publicly available, and there's also an open ledger. I think quite a bit of like interesting concepts right there, and we'll also explore Jermaine's journey from the UK to Kenya, where he's currently based out, and the story and impact of Kwanda, as to how also African diaspora can engage in practical, transparent philanthropy to create meaningful change back home. Jermaine, it's a pleasure to have you with us today. I know I mentioned you're based out of Nairobi, but I think today you're tuned in from London, right?
yeah. I just landed in London yesterday, so out of London at the moment.
Amazing. And thank you for making time. I can't even imagine with all the jet lag and now I'm just, bombarding you with so many questions.
All good. I'm ready. I'm very ready today.
Perfect. Talking of ready, we have five quick round fire questions for you. It's supposed to be fun, just a little bit of getting to know you. And yeah, so the first question, because you moved out to Kenya,
Oh,
what's your
oh wow.
favorite Kenyan meal so far?
You know what? I've definitely not done a good enough job of getting into local dishes. I personally, I mean, yama choma,
Yes.
definitely. But I would like that. And then now I'm actually more of a chapati connoisseur, as in, you
Yeah.
know how some people are like with their coffee, is this a good one? Is this? That's
Yes.
how I'm like with
Yes.
chapatis now. I'm like, is this a good chapati or no?
Yeah, no, I agree because like the chapati has to have like layers and it has to
Yeah,
be like really soft, right?
exactly. And
I love
chapati
a
with
good
beans,
chapati. Yeah.
perfect.
So what do you have with your chapati?
Normally beans, just because for me it's like a light thing that I eat. It almost feels more, yeah, for the taste. So I'm like, I just want a small bowl of beans, chapati, and
Yeah.
I really want to savor it.
Yeah. Good choice. Good choice. Another question. One Kenyan habit you've picked up since moving to Nairobi. And speaking of which, when did you move to Nairobi?
So officially in April, so
Okay.
just at the start of April, I've been traveling a bit, but I plan for Nairobi to be the base for which I travel from.
Yeah.
So in terms of habits, so
Mm-hmm.
these habits, I don't know if I feel like maybe they were perhaps already tendencies I had, and then Kenya just brought them out.
Yeah.
One of them is definitely like teas all throughout the meal, just sitting down, ordering a first tea, ordering a second one at some point, a third one, or sipping a dawa, just taking it really slow. Um,
Now I know you're from Kenya because you're saying dawa. I think dawa is so Kenyan. It's so
yeah,
Nairobi. And for people who don't know what a dawa is, what is a dawa? How would you explain a dawa?
I mean, I explain it as a warm ginger, honey. I think sometimes orange in it. And then what I actually like is you can have like an alcoholic dawa effectively.
True.
And I think you could put some vodka in it. So
Yeah.
sometimes that would be my go-to when I go out. So I can kind of feel like I'm not drinking, but also
Yeah.
they
And
can
you're warm, especially when it's like
exactly.
cold. Yeah. Yeah. I do miss a good dawa when I'm away from home. Cool. And now speaking of, you traveling from one country to another, especially with the work that you're doing, you've been to various African cities, African countries. What's your favorite African city and why?
I mean, it's definitely Nairobi, just given the fact that that's the place I decided, wow, I want to be here.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, there's just the energy about it, and it works well enough. I'm from Nigeria, so I've spent a lot of time in Lagos,
Yeah.
and Lagos, it has the energy, but it doesn't necessarily work as well. And then Nairobi is a place where you get there and it's like, okay, there's still that
My
kind of.
Nigerian friends will come for you. Jermaine, please.
I mean, look, I can talk all day about how Lagos doesn't work as well as it should. So,
Yeah. Okay.
but
Cool.
yeah, I feel like Nairobi, you can like it works a bit better. You can get things done,
Yeah.
and still like the energy's still there, or at least like the energy isn't comparable to Lagos. Like I will say that, but you can see that it's building.
Yeah, and I think you can also travel to so many other places
Right, it's
from
a hub.
Nairobi. It's very similar to like London, how you have London
Mm.
sort of sitting very central to other places as well. Okay, cool. Next question: a book or podcast that has shaped your perspective recently.
Recently,
Mm-hmm.
there's a book that I've been meaning to read it for a while.
Yeah.
It's I don't even know if this is the exact title, but it's I think it's called Mimetic Desire, or it's around the concept of mimesis, which is that we're all essentially copying each other, and I want something because someone else has modeled that they want it, and it's a book that I've been wanting to read for a long time, but my time in Africa has really kind of brought home what's important to me, and so I think like and that's been more almost like psychologically like wait, what do I want, how do I want my life to be, what are the things that I want to go after, and then I think that book adds the scientific component which allows you to basically ground it and say, and so it's been really useful because I think now anytime I see something and my initial urge is, oh, I want that hat or I want those trainers, I kind of do that double take and I ask myself, do I want it because I want it, or do I want it because I'm in this process of
Yeah.
mimesis, and it just allows to create some separation. And I always hate the idea of an outside force controlling my actions, so having that element allows me to make better decisions, I'd say.
Yeah. Wow. Quite profound. And the last one is, what song is currently on repeat on your playlist?
Honestly, so something strange has happened. I love music,
Mm-hmm.
but in the last or most of this year, I just haven't really put in my headphones and listened to music. But on repeat, it's Nigerian artist Shali Poppy, and the song
Mm.
is called Lao.
Yeah. Oh, it's great.
Yeah, I just find myself saying it like all
Yeah.
the time.
Yeah. No, I think there's amazing music coming from Nigeria. I like the Afro beats as well. The Afro beats artists have done such a great
Yeah,
job in terms of like marketing Nigeria and bringing like Nigerian culture to the world globally. And it's been such a beautiful process to see just how music is able to connect so many people. And now Afrobeats, Afro music is global. Like
yeah,
people who wouldn't even know the words. I don't know the words to some of the songs, and I'm just like, yay, and even going to concerts as well. But yeah, amazing. I think now we'll go into sort of more in-depth conversations around
okay,
your story and how you came to start Kwanda. And I think it's quite inspiring. I don't know if you remember, but we're on the same panel as well early in the
yeah,
year, talking about African diaspora and just pushing the agenda as to how more African diaspora needs to own their stories and make more impact back home. But like for you, kind of like take us back. What how did the Kwanda start? Like where was the need and why did you feel like you needed to do this? And even before you sort of get to that, I'd also be very curious because you mentioned you grew up in Nigeria. So like how did you get from Nigeria to the UK and Kwanda, lots of things that have to
yeah,
be.
yeah, sure. So I was actually born in the UK,
Okay.
and I just spent short periods in Nigeria, like a year at a time. I went to school there at two different points in my childhood.
Mm-hmm.
And this was really because my mum and my dad were entrepreneurs. So they were always trying to start the next thing. And they actually were trying to start the equivalent of the first blockbusters in Nigeria. And so that's what took us there the first time. And then
Okay.
the second time, it was just my mum's a maths teacher. So she didn't want me going to an inner London secondary school. So she said, let's give Nigeria a shot. So I wasn't sent back there. That's what everyone assumed. We were all bought
Given
into this.
one-way tickets to
Yeah,
Nigeria.
it was one way, but we all made the decision together. I was aware of it. It wasn't one of those like holidays where you get stuck. Um, but yeah, so I was born in London, grew up in London, and normal childhood. But I grew up on a council estate, which I always say was a playground for kids and maybe more of a prison for adults. I couldn't imagine living where I grew up now. But at the time, it was very fun. You know, you have parks to either side of you, so you're constantly meeting new kids. It was a mixed community, so white, Caribbean, African, and yeah, I just grew up spending a lot of time outside with people. And you know, as I grew up, I noticed that I had like a sensitivity, like I thought about things a bit more, or I spent time pondering, daydreaming, like every night when it was bedtime, maybe 9 p.m. I remember I'd love it because I'd get in my bed and create this whole new world in my mind. And I think that's when my imagination started kicking. Um, and really beyond that, you know, spent a lot of time playing out, and then just discovered that, you know, I had this interest in people, so, and the psychology of people, and systems. So how does stock markets work? How do airlines work? How does one airline take passengers from one side of the world to another side of the world? Who pays for the pet? Just all of these different things, and I just kind of started like this like self intellectual stimulation, which was a massive theme in my life. And then of course, in school, I was like the kid who couldn't sit still, was bored, and I realized that I just wasn't that intellectually stimulated at school. I had bigger questions than what was covered in the typical curriculums. So interestingly enough, when I went to Nigeria, although now in hindsight, I don't know if the Nigerian educational system sets people up for a modern world, but that was the first time where I was a bit more stimulated intellectually, just because I got pushed up a grade.
Mm.
And so it was like, okay, this is a bit tougher. I need to pay attention here. I can't take my eye off the ball. Because in Nigeria, we used to do this thing where you like transcribe notes. So the teacher will just stand in the front and talk, and you just have to write it down. And if you miss a sentence, like there's no going back. And then you're going to feel the pain of that later on. And so I think my experience in Nigeria was the first time I looked out into the world and I was like, wow, there are kids working where
Mm.
I don't have to work, or there are people just doing things that were entirely different to what I saw in the UK. And I think that's when I got the sense that, oh, like I want to help in some way. Like that kid that has to work at his father's shop, and do hard labor. I want to be able to do something to help him such that he wouldn't be in that position. And so that was a latent kind of feeling that was always underlying. And of course, I grew up in a Nigerian household where the practice of sending money back home is very regular. So I knew, you know, when I get older and I have a job, I would naturally do something of the sort, but I didn't know exactly who I would be sending money to and by which mechanisms. But and of course, I got older and realized that this isn't the case at all. I don't have anyone to send money to,
Yeah.
but I always had
Lucky
this. Yeah,
you. At least you don't have
exactly.
the black tax.
Yeah, I didn't like it because it was really my grandma
Yeah.
was the like last layer for me. Everyone
Yes.
underneath that was like, nah,
Yeah.
I don't, you know, and so, but I always had this like sense that I wanted to contribute in some way. And then I
Yeah.
was also very passionate about Black people in general. And I was always passionate about underdogs, like people that are overlooked. Um, and, you know, I grew up not having a lot of money, but I wanted to get on the property ladder and I wanted to do all the things that I've read about in books, whether it's invest in companies. And so when you don't have a lot of capital, the way to do that is through group economics. I was always very interested in that as a concept. And when, you know, we would complain about getting kicked out of a club as Black people, or they didn't host our events, I'd just be like, why don't we just put all our money together and buy it? Like we're
Yeah.
all stunting on each other. We've all got designer and this and that. Um, you know, we have footballers, musicians in the community. Let's come together and basically own a lot of the stuff so we don't have to complain or ask someone on the outside for a handout. And so, yeah, I think I had a career starting in Silicon Valley and moving through technology. And that's when I kind of built up my like entrepreneurial skills as well as like really
Yeah.
product design, like getting people what they want, creating experiences offline and online that make people feel good. And then that really tied in the psychology element as well. And I just realized I'm just interested in figuring out what people want, how to make people feel good, and delivering that thing. And so to tie up this story of the history, I worked at a final startup called Thread,
Mm-hmm.
which used AI to help men dress better. was the product. And one thing that they done that was quite unique was they had this full transparency policy.
Mm,
And this was an internal transparency, meaning you're CC as a team member, you're CC'd into every email. You can see the CEO dealing with board members, dealing with investors. You could see something happening on the marketing team. And the idea was that as an individual, you feel empowered and bought in on everything that's happening in the organization. And more than just how fascinating that was as a concept, I had enough of an insight into how the business ran that I felt like, okay, the next thing that I start is going to be a success because I know how to run startups or companies now. And it was obviously a naive thought. And so I thought, given it's going to be a runaway success, why not do something that I'd be happy working in 30 years, 40 years? And the idea was ultimately like I looked into my mind and I was like, what type of world would I want to live in? And
yeah,
it would be in a world where we can go back to countries in Africa and feel like comfortable and feel like this is an amazing, inspiring place. And we're collaborating with those on the continent, as well as in the diaspora, a world where, like, as Black people, we feel comfortable. We feel like our culture is reflected in the buildings we step into or the businesses that we buy from. And I've basically plainly said, there are, I think at the time I was saying there are 1.5 million of us in the UK. What if we all put together £1 a month? Like, what venues could we buy? What schools can we build? What like problems within our communities can we solve? And that was really the concept. And I was naively thinking, I'm going to do this thing £1 a month. Every single person in the UK is going to sign up, or I'm going to go out and literally tell them there's this thing called Kwanda, sign up. But unfortunately, that was the period around COVID as well. So just as we
mm,
launched, lockdown happened a few months later. So we were stuck on the internet as our primary means of promoting. And then that's when the idea of like transparency and all these things really came in because it's like,
yeah,
you can't see me, you can't see us. How do we design something online that feels like a true village where everyone's bought in and can see what's happening? And that
yeah.
was really the birth of Kwanda.
Wow, that's amazing. And I love that you've taken us through like that whole journey. You're the second person I've had, talking about, living in the council estate as amazing for the kids, but
Yeah,
almost, quite challenging for the adults. Another comedian, in one of their podcasts kind of said exactly the same thing. And I love
right.
how as children, sometimes, the childlike naivety, you just don't see, the struggle. You sort of just
Mm,
this is all this is whole
yeah,
you have friends, you have everything you need, so you couldn't think that you're any less than, which is amazing.
yeah.
As a child growing up, and for how long were you in Nigeria for school?
Yes, I was only there. So I was in school twice, and each time it was just 1 year.
I see.
So it
Okay.
was a bunch of holidays every now and then. And then the
Yeah.
actual times I lived there, it was just 1 year at a time.
Okay, great. I think I wanted then to sort of ask, like, you had this amazing thing going on in the UK, Silicon Valley job, you're in tech, you're doing this, you could have easily been like, you know what, I'm good, I'm Gucci. But
Sometimes I
then,
think about it.
but now you pack up your life and move back to the African continent, and out of all the places you decide, Kenya and Nairobi specifically is where you want to make your kind of like your headquarters, or like,
Yeah,
a
yeah.
place to call home for the time being. But like, what was that transition like, and do you know how long you'll be out there, or is that your forever home?
I want it to be my forever home for sure. I see such a great future, both personally, but even ecosystem wise in Nairobi. Like it seems like it's going somewhere. And I almost feel like if I go anywhere else, I'd be kicking myself in 10 years and telling people, "Oh, I was there at the beginning. I was there at the beginning." So yeah, definitely, I see myself being in Nairobi long term, as long as nothing crazy happens. In
Yeah.
terms of the transition, so I didn't actually know I'd end up in Nairobi.
Mm-hmm.
I There was a time around the COVID period where I planned to move to the continent at that time,
Yeah.
and my aim was to like primarily I was thinking of Ghana, Accra,
Mm-hmm.
and so I went there, spent a month. But before that, I was in Lagos,
Mm-hmm.
and I was kind of picking between, all right, late, let me try it because I'm West African, so I just assumed, okay, West Africa. I never even like I'd been to South or East, and I was just like, all right, definitely a West African country naturally. So I went to Nigeria, I went to Ghana, and then one of my friends who's Ghanaian was actually in Kenya at the time in Nairobi, and he was like, "You should come up to Nairobi."
Can I ask
Um,
who? Because I have a feeling I might know them.
it's a guy called Kwame.
Oh, okay, cool. There's another friend of mine who's Nigerian but was living
Okay,
in Ghana and then moved to Nairobi in
Nairobi.
January. There's so many people moving to Nairobi, which is
Yeah,
really interesting.
yeah, and
Yeah,
especially not just from Europe or the US,
yeah,
but intra Africa. There's people saying,
exactly,
yeah, which is
exactly.
amazing. Yeah. So yeah, to go back to the transition. So I mentioned I didn't actually know I'd end up in Nairobi. That time when he told me to come out, I said it would be the next stop, but we didn't end up making it out there. And then I came back to London. And then I stayed in London for a few years. And towards the end of that period is where the inception of Kwanda came around. And I kind of forgot about the plan to move back to the continent through those years.
Yeah.
And then my cousin randomly at the end of last year, we missed out on the Dirty December. So he was like, look, let's at least go to South Africa, real last minute. He gave me like 5 days notice. And I was like, all right, cool. I don't want to spend this money at the start of the year, but let's just do it. So we go out to South Africa, and this is my first experience outside of West Africa. And I
Mm-hmm.
know South Africa is a special case, but
Yeah.
I thought, wow, this is this is Africa. I can wake up and go for a nice coffee and go for a run on the beach and climb a mountain.
I'm assuming
And
that's Cape Town.
it was Cape Town. Yeah, 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 yeah. It was Cape Town, which is its own thing. So I was like, okay, the idea of being back on the continent, given the experience in, let's say, Cape Town, for example, is like very appealing again because it was also cheaper. But I kept on saying to him, there's something about Nairobi. I don't know why. Even when I was in Cape Town, I was meeting people and I was telling them I want to move back. They were saying, "Where are you considering?" I was saying, Cape Town, but also Nairobi. I just want to check it out before I make a
Yeah.
decision. Um, and so I basically got back to London and I said, okay, I'm definitely moving back to the continent. Cape Town or Johannesburg is the number one contender. But as I head back to Cape Town, let me stop off in Nairobi first for a few weeks.
Mm.
Yeah, that was the plan. And because it's so close, I was like, Nairobi,
Yeah.
jump to Cape Town
Yeah.
easily. And so I came out to Nairobi and I had no idea. I think I forget the summit name that was happening now. It was a tech kind of thing.
Okay. Okay. I think it's the Africa Tech Summit
Yeah,
in Feb.
ATS. Yes, yeah, yeah,
Yes.
that was
Yes.
the one. So it was in February. And people kept on saying, "Oh, you going to the tech summit, the tech summit?" I was like, "No, I'm just here. I don't know why I'm here. I'm just waiting to check out Nairobi." And they were like, "Wow, that's weird. Like you're just here for 3 weeks." Um, and I think I went to a first Africa Tech Summit side event, and I just met so many people that had moved, whether it's from Tanzania, whether it's from US, UK to Nairobi. And
Mm.
this is something that I haven't experienced in Lagos or in Accra. So I was just surprised at how much this felt like this metropolitan city with people from all around and everyone was building and the energy was crazy. But I still had my sights set on Cape Town. So I invited two of my friends out from London and we went to Cape Town. And as I was leaving, I was just like, no, I think it's Nairobi. Like as I was leaving the country, I was like, I think it's Kenya. I think it's Nairobi. And then when I got to Cape Town, I just wanted to get back to Nairobi.
Mm.
And then I was like, this is obviously the place because I was so in love with the idea of Cape Town and the fact that there's somewhere I love more just meant like that was it. And since
Oh
I've like
wow.
gone out and come back in, and every time I go to Nairobi, I was on a layover on my way to Dar es Salaam recently.
Yes.
And, I was just like flying over and seeing the new expressway
Yeah.
checkpoints and thinking like, I wish I could just come out of the airport and go home,
Yeah.
was what I said.
Oh wow. I we need to get hip Nairobi because you guys are going to increase the rental prices. I have such love for Nairobi. I mean, I'm Kenyan. I grew up in
Yeah.
Nairobi and I've seen the various stages or kind of like phases Nairobi has been in. And I
Mm,
think right now it's the Nairobi I can't even recognize some parts of
wow.
Nairobi. Every single industry can think of like property real estate is crazy right now. Finance, fintech, the
Yeah,
tech
fintech.
space. everybody, almost everybody is in Nairobi, or everybody has connections with Nairobi, and almost everybody sort of knows each other, especially
Oh yeah,
diaspora people. Like you go in and somebody's talking about somebody, and you're like, are you talking about this? And like, yeah, that's why I asked you earlier on. It's almost like this little you know network of people that you can easily plug in, and it just
very.
makes it easier for you to move in, because they're like, yeah, this was my moving journey, or my transition, and you're
Yeah.
able to sort of get in there. So
Real quick,
yeah.
what would you say has changed about Nairobi? Is it the industry coming in? Is it the
Ah,
vibe?
so many things. Oh goodness. I mean, for starters, people are not being paid in dollars or pounds.
Yeah.
That was not the norm when 20 years back. We have more people coming in from other countries. We have African diaspora coming in,
Mm,
and coming in from the UK, coming in from the US. And then we have people also coming in from other African countries, like, Ghanaians, Nigerians, South Africans, just coming to set up in Nairobi. And then Nairobi has almost now become sort of like a hub for East
yeah.
Africa. So yes,
Okay.
somebody's located in Nairobi, and kind of like they have their roots in Nairobi, but then you see they have businesses or operations across other countries as well. So it's
Okay.
been a very interesting journey to see. And even when it comes to like real estate, like there's so much real estate coming
Oh
out
yeah.
of Nairobi.
There's always a building under
It's so
construction.
crazy. It's so crazy. And now they're also building outside of Nairobi, which I think
Okay.
is fantastic. I think I want
Mm,
to move. Like, if I do move back to Nairobi, I think I would move to a different city outside of Nairobi,
right.
or like
Okay.
a
Okay.
smaller town. Again, the quality of properties getting better, I
Yeah.
think. Expressway was never there, now it's functional, which is amazing, because you can move from one place to another, like you can
Yeah.
move in between counties as well, which is fantastic. Yeah, I think there's just so many things as well. You can almost get anything you need in
Oh
Nairobi.
yeah.
Even, having been in London, you can almost get everything you have in London in Nairobi. um yeah, yeah, I think it's great. It's great. I mean, and everybody's so kind. There's
Oh
so much
yeah.
hospitable. Everybody's just welcoming as well. It's unlike London. It's a bit cold.
Yeah. No, that was one of the big things for me. It was,
Yeah,
I met in in one day I met people that would come to my birthday, come to breakfast
yeah,
tomorrow. So it was just like, okay, this is easy. Like I don't have, I'm here. I've already got friends. Like even when I went last time, I was like, it's crazy because I feel like I can call up three people
yeah,
and be like, hey, I'm on a layover. Can I come and stay over at your house? And I
yeah.
can't say the same necessarily for London, which I've lived
Mm-mm.
in my
Get
whole
an
life.
Airbnb. Get a hotel.
Yeah,
Awesome. Well, I'd love to also now sort of discuss about Kwanda. I know you've mentioned a few things here and there, but essentially, what is Kwanda? What is Kwanda? What does Kwanda mean? What do you guys do? You know?
yeah. So we're definitely in a period of simplifying how we talk about Kwanda because
Hmm.
we went through that process of, oh, can we be this big machine for the diaspora? But simply put, it's a community of Africans in the diaspora, Caribbeans as well, doing philanthropy together. So anyone that feels like, when I get older, I want to build a school in my hometown. There are 10, 20, 30 other people that have roots to that same hometown. And if we come together under a platform, we might be able to do that in 2 years rather than in 20 years, or in a week rather than in a few months. So that's what Kwanda is, like at the more basic level. Diasporans doing philanthropy together,
Yeah.
and then it's a online platform. We
Hmm.
call it a digital village, and we basically built some features of the community that are quite unique and make us quite special in the wider scheme. One of them is transparency. So
Hmm.
we're like fully transparent. We have what you mentioned earlier, our open ledger, which is basically a live feed of all our banking transactions. So you can see everything from the
Wow.
amount we might pay on
Like, so
flights,
everybody can see every single transaction
every
happening.
single transaction. It's basically a mirror of our bank statement. So you can see,
Mm,
and we also explain, okay, look, we spent £200 on this thing because it helps us do this. So it's kind of like very transparent. And me being the CEO, fully accountable, all our villagers
yeah.
who we call our members, have access to my inbox, have me on WhatsApp, and then we do like monthly calls. And then I guess the second element, or one of two or three elements, is, as you mentioned earlier as well, every time we're going to fund a project, let's say we want to build clean water wells in rural Tanzania, I would write a proposal to all our members, our villagers, and we'd vote on that money actually being deployed. And then finally, we also do something called real time updates. So rather than an impact report at the end of the month, quarter, or year, we actually just give you a timeline of how the project that we funded is progressing. So currently, we're doing micro clinics in Lagos, and you can see, okay, we've done the roofing, we've done the electrical wiring, we've opened the clinic, here is our first patient. So it's just to make diasporans feel closer to the impact that's being had than they would typically expect from a traditional nonprofit NGO or charity.
Yeah, that's what actually what I was about to mention. Kwanda seems like a very modern, non-traditional form of like charity, very transparent. It's not those hefty,
Yeah.
lines in the in the transactions. I think it's really interesting. And how has it been? Like, how's the reception been with that sort of transparency, and what's the uptake as well?
Yes, I mean, it's been good when you ask a person what do they love about Kwanda or why did they join. 9 times out of 10, it's the transparency. It's, I love the transparency. I love how I can see how my money's being spent, etc. And it's been a good uptake. I mean, it's nothing like the 1.5 million people that I was hoping for when I first launched. But it's definitely because we actually closed Kwanda down at a point in our journey after the first 3 years, and everyone, like, people would stop me on the streets in London like, man, I'm so sad Kwanda's gone. And that's when I realized, okay, this is something that is like unique in the diaspora context and really resonates with people. So in that way, it's definitely, been well received. And to date we have 2,000 members, and when we closed at the start of last year, we reset from zero, so we've built up these 2,000 members in a year and a half. And people are engaged, and we're actually transitioning a bit and really trying to focus on villagers as well as the impacts we're having. So how can we create a community where you're not only donating your money, but you're also actually hands-on working on the projects, whether that's remotely supporting it or physically in the communities collaborating with the entrepreneurs we fund.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that model because again, within that community, you'll find people with various skill sets, and if they're coming from various countries, then even when they travel, they're able to take on some of the, either project management or even just going to see the, how the project is
Yeah.
operating. And speaking of which countries is Kwanda sort of sponsoring or funding this project in Africa?
Yes. Yeah. So we've been, I think the number is 14 countries so far that we've been in.
Wow.
We recently done a split where we started to focus on long term projects, meaning we'd be in the countries personally, but we
Mm-hmm.
are going to bring back in short term projects as well. But in the long term projects, meaning countries we actively have a presence in right now, today, you can go to view projects:
Mm-hmm.
Nigeria, Kenya, Sierra Leone, Tanzania, Congo,
Mm-hmm.
and recently Haiti being our first Caribbean
Mm-hmm.
country. And
Mm-hmm.
but we've done projects in Rwanda, we've done stuff in Ghana, Uganda, we Jamaica, St. Vincent, and the Grenadines. So I think the total is 14 so far, but we really think we have a model that can allow us to touch all 54 countries on the continent pretty easily, especially if we
Amazing.
do short-term projects as well.
Yeah, and I did want to ask, like, how are you funding Kwandan, and how are you ensuring it's sustainable? Because I think one of the things I've seen with charities is you start a project and then halfway they sort of just leave it, and then the people that were affected by that particular project are just like
Yeah.
they're left to sort of trying to figure out what's next. So how do you ensure you're making it sustainable? And also, is there any option for other traditional charities or for impact funds to sort of connect with you and sort of fund you as well as you find? Because what I've also been seeing is um a lot of impact funds wanting to work with people on the ground, people
Mm.
who are actually moving the needle on the continent, people who have processes, people who have transparency in how they operate. So yeah, how are you looking into like the funding, sustainability, and also working with other bigger funds or charities?
Yeah, sure. So in terms, like, sustainability is something that's critical and is built into the model. on two fronts. So one is how do we sustain Kwanda itself,
Mm-hmm.
and the way we currently do that is very small amounts that people don't miss, contributed monthly. And so, although it might seem like, hey, what if people stop donating? It would mean, 2,000 people all at once decide they don't want to stop, they don't want to donate. So it's pretty sustainable, it's predictable, and it's stable in terms of how we fund ourselves. And of course, that gives us the opportunity to take risk in producing more sustainable assets for Kwanda, where we know we just have this constant income that we can draw upon. So that's on the organizational side. I think the model just allows for that. We don't have to go out and be like, we need people to donate. It's like people just donate in small amounts consistently over time. And then in terms of the actual projects, that's a core part of our criteria that they can be sustained without our funding. And so that's why we really push on innovation in the approaches to the projects. And we primarily fund entrepreneurs that are local. We call them entrepreneurs. It's anyone that's just trying to make a difference in their community. Um, and one of our criteria is that one, they're already doing the work. So we're not looking for bidders, proposal writers. We're looking for people that are already in there doing work, and then we just want to support something that's already happening. And the second thing is the projects we fund typically have a circular nature to them, meaning, so an example, and is actually quite closely related with the problem you just outlined of people being left without resource when the funding dries up, is we do clean water wells in Tanzania. And typically, the issue with clean water wells is an NGO would come in, spend £20,000 on this big drill, hire in the machinery, and then they'll drill this complicated thing that needs electricity, which is not the case in most rural areas. And then they would leave, and people would have clean water for a month until some component breaks. And no one knows what the hell to do with it because it's this like complicated mechanism, or there's no electricity, and so they can't use the pump in that time, and it would literally degrade and be destroyed. And so we funded an entrepreneur in Tanzania called Benedicto, who he builds manual rope pumps, which are less efficient but more stable. And then he actually trains the local community to install the pumps themselves. So as soon as he leaves, if anything breaks, the actual people that built the pump are in close proximity. They're left with parts, and if they need to call up someone like Benedicto, he actually lives within the community himself as well. And so,
they'll,
we've
they'll go and knock at
they'll
the door.
literally knock on your door. And sometimes, you have to do these things that are a bit more rudimentary, but they
Yeah.
work. And we look for something like that in all the projects we fund. And we have so many more examples of that. And then to your last point in regards to, larger
Yeah.
institutions or impact funds. So we haven't done much work at all just because we're really big on, what do our villagers want? We don't want, like, the villagers, that's my boss in a sense.
Mm.
And so everything runs through our villagers. And so it's kind of hard to work with larger funds because they might say, hey, we want to build, a hospital in this specific area. And I'll say, sure, but if our villagers disagree with that, then we can no longer do it. And to
Yeah.
them, it's a relationship. It's some us and them relationship is like, yeah, but we're talking to Kwanda. And we're like, yeah, Kwanda is 2,000 individuals.
Mm.
Um, and so at any given point, our village can decide to cut that project, and that has to be what happens. But we're still trying to figure out ways. We're open to partnerships, but primarily, our villagers fund us, and it means we can move quick. We don't have to deal with red tape. So yeah, we like to kind of move quick, give people funding quick, and do away with all the legalese and bureaucracy.
Okay. I think just something your wires I think are kind of hitting either a table or a laptop. It's making some sound, so maybe keep it closer.
Okay. All right. Cool.
Sorry. Yeah, I think fantastic question. And I think maybe then talking about what have been some of the challenges you've experienced. I know you've mentioned you closed Kwanda for a while and then, opened it up. And I do really empathize and I definitely understand from a business perspective. Sometimes, that one thing you love so much,
Yeah.
sometimes it's just not working. So how did that happen? And again, how did you manage to sort of bring it back on?
Yeah. So the story of how we closed the first time around was, we launched Kwanda initially in 2020, and this was the year where we went into lockdowns, pandemic. And this was also the year where George Floyd died. And so we launched Kwanda at the start of the year. It was going well. Didn't have a lot of members, but it was tight knit. We were having meetings with each other. We were funding small things here and there, like we want to get some books to a particular school, just really small things, like not a huge impact. And then when George Floyd died, everyone was looking for places to put money, especially with Black people. And we stood out as this very transparent, new, modern collective. And so we effectively went viral on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, etc. And we went from about 200 members to 2,000 members in the space of 2 to 4 weeks.
Wow.
So yeah, it was a massive, quick growth, and also I built the website, the platform. I'm not the best software engineer at all, so it was kind of duct taped together. And so yeah, it was just
Barely moving.
yeah, barely
Anything
duct taped
small, it
together.
was just
Exactly, it was just
yeah.
a DIY job, but it's still. I mean, I'm surprised at how well it done considering that. And so what also happened is because we have this transparency, all of a sudden I went from 200 people that have my phone number and can call me at any hour of the day, which was fine, to 2,000 people. And
Mm,
also 2,000 people that didn't necessarily like understand the origins of Kwanda, just joined off an Instagram ad or whatever it might be. And they're like, hey, what's going on with this funding? Why aren't we spending money here? So it was like also a lot for me personally because it was just myself and a co-founder at the time. But we basically weathered that storm. Over that period of time, we deployed, I think, £100,000 into different projects across the continent, and also at that time in the UK, which is a thing that a lot of people don't know. But we were funding, Black communities in the UK as well. And so at the end of that period, I was very much burnt out just of the process of, deploying the funding, dealing with 2,000 people. Um, and what started happening was the hype from the George Floyd cycle started dying off.
mm,
So we started seeing people drop off really quickly after about a year and a half. And in that period, we like pumped up our fixed monthly costs in order to basically support that size of a community.
mm.
And so what started happening is the income number was going down
Yeah.
and the fixed income cost was high. And I was like, oh, we're gonna be losing money, which is like nothing like what we should expect to be happening. And I was just too burnt out to actually solve that issue, and reverse that trend. And I was just like, all right, cool. Like one of the big things for me was, I don't want to suffer to help. Like I'm not gonna be a martyr. I would
Yeah.
love to
You
contribute,
need to
but
get your oxygen mask on to be able to
exactly.
actually, serve the community or serve the cause.
Precisely. And I remember I said to myself, I made a promise to myself was I'm only going to do this as long as it's fun and enjoyable. And the moment it stops being that, I'm just going to say, all right, I did something, like I'm just going to get back to my life. And that's exactly what happened. So I was like, all right, let me close this thing down. And then what actually happened post to that was, I'm a designer, like I really care about brand design, thoughtfulness of product. And, I still had a part of me that was like, even though this thing is closed down, I still want to add the final polishes that I would have had I had the time. And I want to freeze it in time. So I want to redo the logo, fix everything, all the internal stuff, do the engineering right, just so I can say, hey, this is a product I created and it's frozen in time. And through the process of doing that, I kind of like rebuilt and fixed a lot of the stuff that made it hard to scale. And I was going to networking events, and people were asking me, "What do I do?" And I was all I could talk about is, I did do this thing called Kwanda, and it was this amazing. I just realized that this is the only thing I want to spend my time doing.
Yeah.
So at the start of last year, I was like, "Look, I'm going to simplify it. I'm going to let people know beforehand that look, this is not going to be this big complex machine anymore. Um, we're going to just focus on Africa. We're not going to do UK as well, at least at this point in time. And you have to bear with me. It's a one-man team. I have a job now, and I'm just going to do what I can do with the limited hours I have every day." And then we relaunched it. And honestly, we started from scratch, and it's just been a success ever since then. We've already gone beyond in one year what we achieved in the first 3 years before we closed.
Wow.
and it's much easier. I spend a couple hours a day on it, and I don't feel like I'm burning out. Although the travel has burned me out a bit, but yeah, and that's kind of where we are today. And
Yeah.
yeah, the challenges are always there when you're building stuff. I'm sure you know, especially when you're dealing with people, keeping them engaged, like painting a picture of a view of a vision. You know, everyone likes the new thing, so if a new idea comes, it's like, all right, let's try that out. But it's kind of selling the idea that Kwanda is, you know, structurally very the integrity is very solid structurally, and if you're going to bet on any vehicle to be able to impact change on the continent in small or big ways, this is the one you should bet on.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. I think I do appreciate that breakdown, because sometimes you need to take a step back to be able to move two steps forward, right? And also being, you can burn out from something you love so much.
Yeah,
That's what people forget. You could be so happy with what you're doing, but at the same time it's taking so much from you. And so I do appreciate you taking the time that you need, and coming back. And it's evident from what you've mentioned. You've grown way much more than you were, like, three for the 3 years you're in operation. It's just amazing to see what you guys are doing. And I think, as we wind up, how can people, whether on the
wow,
continent, in the diaspora, or even friends of Africa, people who are allies, people who are really, intrigued by the cause and what you're doing. Because I do believe it's not only, the diaspora want to take part in philanthropy, but,
yeah.
for anyone that wants to support your mission as well. How can they participate? What can you tell them? Where do they go? Where can they start?
Yeah, so first I'm of course going to plug Kwanda. I think if
Mhm.
you want to do it with a group, you should do it with the Kwanda group. When there are different types of groups. You have Hoke, which is a great group if you want to invest in startups on the African continent. You have Diaspora House, also a group I'm a part of, if you want to buy real estate in Nairobi, for example. But if you just want to do philanthropy and impact lives, Kwanda is the group. And joining Kwanda is very simple. That's one of the things people say about our platform. You go on, there's a button called Join the Village. You click on that, and within a minute, you'll be a part of the community and understand how you get involved in the discussion, and anything you need to understand about the projects we funded, etc., are on the Kwanda website. But at a higher level, when people are thinking about how can I get involved with development on the African continent, I know historically the way has been I am an individual either on the continent or living in the diaspora, and I want to have an impact. So I need to find a school to support or a hospital to support. And that's really complicated because it's just like imagine trying to do that. A
Yeah.
random country, I need to find a hospital and how do I support them? What we do and what I recommend people do and what I would have done in hindsight is find an entrepreneur, a social entrepreneur that's already having an impact and be their co-partner in the impact they're having. Because there's so many entrepreneurs, younger, older, that are doing amazing things but don't have access to resource, access to information, and you could be that stand for them. And that could be your way of having a direct impact rather than having to do it yourself. So partner up is what I'm saying. Find your, African co-founder while you're the diaspora co-founder and join in on the work they're already doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I would say.
Amazing. Great. Well, thank you. That's a beautiful way to sort of wrap up the discussion. But before you go, we have another sort of quick fire round question. And I'll start with this. So you moved out of the UK, and kind of like settled in Nairobi. But is there anything you miss about the UK, if at all any?
Honestly, the only thing, and I'm experiencing now, is line bikes. Like that's the only I
Yeah.
realized how much I love jumping on a bike that I don't own
Yeah.
and just riding around the city.
Yeah.
And certainly in Nairobi, I wish I could just jump on a line bike and ride around. So that's
Yeah.
one thing. Um, it's tough in comparison to Nairobi because I feel like you said, you can get a lot of stuff in Nairobi.
True.
Maybe if I was comparing to another city, then it would be more difficult. But yeah, I think the walkability and the line bikes, like
Mm.
being
I
able
agree.
to just get on the road, walk for a few hours without worrying about a car or
Yeah.
anything like that, I would say
Yeah.
for sure.
And also traffic lights working and people
Yeah.
actually observing that. Because people don't people don't observe the traffic lights, and you're like, it's a zebra crossing, it's green, I'm
Yeah.
supposed to walk, why not giving me space? And just having walk paths as well, people to
Mm,
cycle, people to walk. I do appreciate London and the ease of just moving about, even just walking, right?
yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Big time. That's the big thing for
Yeah.
me. It's the walking around and yeah.
Okay, next question: what's one myth about Africa you wish people would stop believing?
Honestly, in the past, I would have said something like one of the negative myths, but actually, there's
Mm-hmm.
one that might, in some ways, be a bit more dangerous with is the newer positive myths, which is that
Mm,
Africa is this place you're going to go to, and because you're a member of the diaspora, you'll be able to set up a business and make a lot of money, and it's moving and hustling and bustling, and you only need to go there. It's like the same as any city. You have to
yeah,
start from the ground level, and if you get here today, maybe you won't be able to do much until 5 years down the line. So you have to be invested in the environment. For me, it's more I saw like a future for my family primarily. And if I happen to do something amazing on the side of that, that's cool. But I was just more like I see myself having a nice house somewhere in Kenya with a garden, sipping my chai tea. And that's like the thing I'm
the
going for.
Jawa as well.
Yeah, and yeah, exactly. And I'd be happy with that. So I think you need to find a simple life you'd be happy with,
Yeah,
and not just approach it as a place where you go there and get rich quick.
yeah,
Because it's also not that you'll be very frustrated if that's the mindset you have.
I agree. I agree. And somebody who's sort of like moved in and in between the two, um, for sure. If you're a diaspora, I think even from the country you're from, you have to go back and relearn, almost like be like, okay, this is what I thought and this is what I grew up in, but the city has changed, the
Yes,
country has
yes.
changed. So how can I also sort of relearn what I already knew? Okay, great. Another question. In one sentence, what does Africa need most from its diaspora? Is it the remittance? Maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah, everyone's saying remittance right now. I think it's care, like, but a deep kind of care,
Mm-hmm.
which is not going to be easy to summon up in yourself for sure,
Mm-hmm.
because I think it has to happen also on the continent. Like us who are on the continent also need to be like, I care about the zebra crossing, for example.
Mm.
Like I care about the function of it. I care about what happens when I engage with it properly for the next person. I think that's
Yeah.
the thing that's missing. I think that's missing like across the board. It's like, I
Yeah.
care about this because someone else is going to experience it after me.
Okay.
And I
Cool.
think that's something good for all our lives in general to,
True.
care about everything you engage.
True. True. For the next generation as well, not just for you.
Yeah.
Okay. If you could collaborate with any African leader, past or present, who would it be and why? I have a feeling who you're going to see, but I like to hear you first.
I mean, I know the common one right now is Ibrahim Traore.
Okay, I was going to say
Uh,
Nelson Mandela, but okay, cool.
on, mm, I think it
It's a
would
tough one.
be yes, because there are a few people, maybe in
I'll
Kruma.
do a shameless plug.
Yeah,
I love the outdoors. I love nature,
I
and
think I know who you're going for.
yeah, Wangari Maathai.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
She's
Amazing.
Kenyan, and she won a Nobel Peace Prize. She's amazing. She advocated for a lot of the open spaces that you see around Nairobi, and at a time when other people did not see what exactly she was doing, and because of how we have so many parks out there in Nairobi, and she did
Yes.
an incredible job, and she's one of those people I'm just like, she was ahead of the time, and
Yeah.
you
Oh
know
wow.
the way you're talking about care is exactly what she embodied. She
Yes.
she fought for those spaces, and yeah, and I'm glad that she finally got the recognition that she deserved.
Yeah. Okay. Because I knew about her, but I really learned about her work in Nairobi recently,
Yeah.
and she has become for me one of like if I could pick one thing to have done to a place, it would have been what she done. And I
Yeah,
wish she was in Lagos.
yeah, yeah. She's just like that's legacy right there, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay, cool. Last question. What's one action someone listening today can take to impact on the continent before the end of the year?
I think find a collective, like decide what the thing you want to do is and find a collective. And you don't have to contribute immediately,
Mm-hmm.
but at least like join in on the cause, etc. Because
Yeah,
if you're a capitalist and you want to make investment return, there's a collective for you. If you want real estate that you can stay in, there's a collective for you. If you just want to have an impact through giving, there's a collective for you. If you want to invest in sports teams, there's ways to get this journey started. So I'd be like, decide what it is you want to do and
yeah,
find a collective.
yeah. If you just want to connect with other diaspora, there's just
Yeah,
your network, you know.
yeah, exactly. If you want to travel, there's connective.
True, true, true. Well, thank you, Jermaine, for your time. That's all we have today. I know we could talk for longer, and maybe
I
you
went
should
quick.
come back again. But thank you for your time. For everyone listening, thank you for your time. We'll try and answer a few of your questions on LinkedIn. But yeah, if you want to find out a lot more about Kwanda, you can check out their website, Kwanda. That's Kwanda. You can also reach
Yeah.
out to Jermaine Craig. You can reach out to myself, Nancy Masila, or you can reach out to Jasuri Network. And yeah, see you next week. Same time, same place. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
See you, everyone.